It's good to have this nice crowd early in the morning. Hopefully no rain today, but we'll see what happens, right? Today, as David mentioned, we want to engage with our community in a conversation about immigration. This is a topic that obviously, as you probably know, will bring a lot of different emotions, and often conversations end up being more of a shout and debate rather than a dialogue and conversation. So what we hope to do this morning is to engage in the conversation, and as we do that, also begin to present information to you that will challenge some of the misperceptions around immigration that I think, unfortunately, are out there through the media and other channels. So in order for us to do that, then we have invited a panel of individuals that have experience around this topic that will be able to shed some information that they have been able to accumulate in their experience, and that will help us also engage in a conversation hopefully will lead to a more informed public around immigration. And our hope is that you will take all this information, whatever you learned this morning, out into the community, out into the workplaces where you are, and be able to engage with others in a more factual-based conversation around immigration. So, to start the morning, to start this conversation, we have our first panelist, Gerry Chapman, who is a local lawyer with a lot of experience on immigration. And he's going to obviously engage with us in a conversation about the legal aspects of immigration. So without further ado, I'm going to just turn it over to Gerry. Thank you, Gerry.
I'm reading a book about Bear, and when I grew up, I was a kid growing up in Atlanta. I was an Alabama football fan, and as well as other teams, but Alabama was a real, famous football team. Bear Bryant was one of the greatest college football coaches of all time, and he, without much fanfare at all, and I don't think very many people know this, helped to integrate the Alabama football team. The way he did that was sort of roundabout way. He knew that talent had no color boundaries. And the Southeast Conference, where Alabama played, had a very strong unspoken rule that only white guys play football. Well, he saw the kids playing in places like Southern Cal and so on, and he scheduled a football game between Alabama and Southern Cal. And I haven't gotten to that part of the football game, but I've read enough to know what happened. Alabama got whipped. And the kids playing for the Southern Cal football team were, it looked like a rainbow out there. And the lesson was very quickly learned, and that led to integration of the Alabama football team in the Southeast Conference. There were probably other people thinking the same things at other schools, but they saw Bear Bryant kind of leading the way in this sort of roundabout fashion. But I think the point truly that I want to make is that the search for merit, which is what Alabama was doing and what Bear Bryant was doing, led to diversity as opposed to the other way around. So if you take a merit-based approach and you have a kind of a colorblind approach to it, or immigration colorblind, if you will, approach to it, you will probably end up with a more diverse group of people. I guess the debate in Congress, if you wish to call it a debate, but maybe end up being a food fight, but the debate that's going on right now in Congress over what our immigration system should reflect has begun to focus more on merit than on other issues. And I think we'll end up with a more widely legal society and workforce than we have now because of this concentration on merit. A couple of points that I'm making. We've got a couple of handouts that I think are on the table there. We have a discussion that's going on in the United States for probably 10 or 15 years, and that is, it'll lead off with the question of, why don't they all just get in line? And the comment is about people who are here without documentation and who are performing work that we have not trained our children to do over the last couple of decades. And it's essential work, but it's done by people that don't have permission to be here. And that's a valid question. Well, the answer to the question is that there's no line for those people to get into. There is a temporary work visa for people that do seasonal works. I'm talking about 10 months a year or less. But if you're talking about year-round work, there's no temporary visa that would allow people to come to work here for 2 or 3 years and then go home if you are talking about manual labor. If you're talking about college level work, there's various kinds of visas that support that. And even though in that part of our system it is, again, merit-based, because we're talking about people's qualifications, the part of the merit picture that's been left out is people who do work that doesn't require a college degree. And if you sit here and think about it, you know, everybody in this room more than likely has got at least one degree. We represent a good picture of what our visa system supports. But the people who produced the little plates that we're using, who process the food that we're eating, who helped with the drinks we're consuming, don't have college degrees, but if they weren't around, we'd be sitting here with nothing on the table and we'd be listening to each other talk about what are we going to do when our food source is controlled by people in foreign countries that don't think much of the United States. So all that being said, the debate in Washington, D.C. is long overdue, but it is now beginning to focus on people that do critical work that up until now have been taken for granted and treated as if they're invisible. And many times they are. They hide in the shadows and do not want to come out and see the light of day for obvious reasons. The change, the sea change, occurred when two things happened. One was when President Obama created what's called Deferred Action for Children. That was a program last summer. The next major event, and that got a lot of critical commentary, a lot of strong support. The next thing that happened was when President Obama just wiped out Mr. Romney on the Hispanic vote. And if you look at the vote tallies, that particular part of the electorate was about a 72 or 73% in favor of Obama. The Republican Party woke up. And like it or not, they are in there arguing about what kind of visa categories we're going to be looking at in the future. The change that we're going to see are going to be profound, or changes. The family-based system will be trimmed down because that's been a really, really strong part of our immigration system for years. And the argument has now become focused on what contributions do these people bring to the United States, as well as the fact that we've got some backlogs that are resulting in people coming to the United States through the family-based system when they're in their 50s. And we've got a health care issue that is directly impacted by that fact. So the sibling U.S. citizen sponsoring a brother or sister, that category under the Senate bill will be gone in about 18 months after this bill is passed, if that remains in the legislation. And so far, there have been no amendments that have been introduced that would take that particular change out of the mix. So for about the next 2 years, people can sponsor sponsor brothers or sisters, U.S. citizens. That's it. It's going to be gone after that. We will lose what is called the diversity program, which is simply a lottery for anybody in the entire world. It's about 50,000 visas, so it's not that significant a number. But it is going to be replaced by a merit-based system that will include an emphasis, or you'll be given points for number of years living in the United States, what kind of skills and education do you have, the number of years you've actually been in our current system, and so on. So it's going to be, and the number of family members. So there will be a mix of merit plus family relationships that will be in that particular part of the bill if it goes through as it's currently phrased. I think what we will ultimately see is, as I said, continuing strength and diversity of our workforce and our people coming to the United States. It will be more merit-based. And, if you're Bear Bryant, or if you're, into linguistics, or you're into music, you're looking for the best people possible. And the result will be, in looking for ability, diversity will follow. So, thank you very much. Anybody that's out there that's an Alabama football fan, you want to talk about Bear Bryant more, let me know. I should say, any questions at this point? We've got time for...
Yeah, we have time for maybe a couple of questions.
Too, about the debate or the current system that we now have, any particular issues, I'd be happy to respond to those if you have any. Or if it's too early in the morning, that's okay.
Coffee has not kicked in. Go ahead.
As it relates to the merit system, I think I heard you correctly, that that's going to be one of the terms of the new legislation that's being currently debated?
Right.
So how is that going to address those jobs that you indicated earlier, that we're not teaching our children we're not teaching our children to mop floors and set tables. So I hear a contradiction somehow.
The question is the merit-based system that I talked about, is that going to be the answer to the undocumented population? The answer is no. There are two aspects to the undocumented population, or the manual labor folks, if you will. There's going to be a category called under the Senate, and what I'm talking about is the Senate proposal. There will be a House proposal, there will be a conference committee, amendments all over the place, so this is likely to change. But the temporary worker visa that has never existed, is going to, the attempt to address that is going to be part of the program called a Registered Provisional Immigrant Status, RPI. That will be good for 6 years for people who qualify. It'll be good for 6 years with the possibility to extend it 6 more, total 12 years. During that last 6-year period, people will have the right at about year 10, assuming a number of triggers are achieved as to border security and E-Verify and so on, to apply for a green card with basically the same qualifications required. So people who have been here on or before December 31, 2011, so there's a cutoff. And if you came in after that point, you don't qualify for the RPI status. People who pay their taxes, I think there's an English ability component to it, at least at the green card stage. Just some basic qualifications, no serious criminal record and so on. And those terms are going to have to be defined with some particularity. But that will give people the right to be here for 6 years with work permission. They'll have a Social Security card. One of the real important components of this, or one of the requirements, is the payment of all taxes before you can apply, which to a lot of people doesn't seem like a big deal. But if you've been here with undocumented status and you have not paid taxes for several years, or if you've been paid in cash and for that reason you haven't paid taxes, this can be, as some of us lawyers refer to it, as the Accountant's Relief Act of 2013. The work that accounting firms are going to have is going to be astounding, or notarios, unfortunately. It's going to be just unbelievable. So that's the short answer. The second part of this is there will be a W visa available starting in 2015, which will be for people in the construction, landscaping, manufacturing, number of industries. There's actually going to be a 15,000 per year limit on construction workers coming in under this new future flow W visa, which seems to me to be artificially low. But that's what this proposal includes.
So one more, and there's a gentleman in the back.
Are you my name is Ford Bowers. I'm also with BB&T.
Good morning.
What do you think the different individual states' roles are going to be in this process? I guess, was it New Mexico maybe a year ago that rolled out a different type of plan? And is that something that I guess we'll just have to keep our eye on?
I think the short answer is it's going to be chaotic, because a number of the legislatures, I think you're referring to Arizona, a number of the legislatures have taken it upon themselves to create immigration systems, primarily focusing on enforcement. But there's a bill in the North Carolina legislature right now that would create a driving permit, not a license, but a permit, same thing, for any undocumented person who comes out and fesses up that they're undocumented, doesn't have a serious criminal record, and so on, that would give them the right to get a driver's license. And this has very strong backing from the Republican leadership and also a huge slice of the business community who realize that workers who don't have driver's licenses are inherently, in a sense, undependable because they may not be able to get to work. And if you're an employer, you have to have that person drive one of your vehicles and they have an automobile wreck, your insurance company is going to deny coverage. So there's some real serious business concerns that have nothing to do with, am I treating people fairly? The sort of the touchy-feely kind of thing. They just want people to be able to come to work. And I think, to the legislature's credit, I'm not sure that they understand what they're doing, but this would be a very positive move, I believe. So, anyway.
Thank you, Jerry.
Okay. Thank you.